Welcome to Recently Logged, where this week we're celebrating Halloween in the Big Apple.
It's a lie. It's all a lie.
It's a lie. Oh, right. I'm like, what? I didn't lie about anything. It is Halloween, but
We're not recording from the Big Apple.
I saw a regular-sized apple earlier this very day. So
It's true.
if you get the perspective just right. Although even then we wouldn't be in a Big Apple. We would just be in the studio still. But
We're recording live in ATL.
it's like Mulholland Drive. Like if you
Oh, really?
if you open a Big Apple like that's up in the kitchen and zoom in, you'll find the Recently Logged studio inside of it.
Yeah, so don't eat the apple because you might destroy the studio.
I was not expecting.
That's like Mulholland Drive, apparently.
I was about to say I wasn't expecting to make a Mulholland Drive reference this early on in a Scream 6 episode.
But we're back yet again, our last episode of October, on the last day of October.
On perhaps the most significant day of October.
Besides my birthday.
Besides your birthday. Happy birthday.
My birthday was like a whole month ago almost.
I know.
But still, yeah, we're back. We're continuing our Scream series. We're technically finishing our Scream series.
For now.
Unless a new Scream movie releases like tomorrow.
Well, I was just saying, like, we're not finished in general. Like, if there's another Scream movie, we're obviously
I'm just
gonna
saying,
talk about it.
we've now covered Scream, Scream 2, Scream 3, Scream 4, Scream 5, and now we're talking about Scream 6.
Which came out this very year.
Whoa.
That's crazy. I think that's crazy.
This is the only one we've seen in theaters.
That is true. And it's sad, but true, honestly.
I mean, did we miss that much with 5?
I would have loved to see 5 in a theater. I personally. But yeah, my name is Robbie.
And I'm Micah.
And we're going to talk about Scream 6.
Let's tell the listeners at home what they need to know about Scream 6. Alright, so Scream 6 is a 2023 film. Its little IMDb description is, in the next installment, the survivors of the Ghostface killings leave Woodsboro behind and start a fresh chapter in New York City.
In New York City.
Shout out to Madagascar Jr., the musical.
I can't remember the last time we made like a niche theater reference on here. It's been too long.
It's hiding the fact that I'm a theater kid. Of course, it was directed by Matt... Oh man, how do you say his name?
Bettinelli-Olpin.
Olpin.
Yeah.
And Tyler Gillett.
Yes.
As in the razor. He owns the razor company, I'm sure.
I don't think that's right.
Executive producer Kevin Williamson.
Yeah.
Among others. But yeah, he's not on the screenplay, unfortunately. But it's written by James Vanderbilt, Guy Busick.
Yeah.
And of course, based on characters by that very same Kevin Williamson. We got music by Brian Tyler and Sven Faulconer.
Yeah.
Very cool. The cast features the likes of Jenna Ortega, Melissa Barrera, Jasmine Savoy Brown, Mason Gooding, Courteney Cox, Hayden Panettiere, and others. So many others. Lots of people. There's a lot of
Samara Weaving in it.
Oh yeah, Samara Weaving's in it for a couple seconds. That one guy from the Spider-Man movie is here.
The guy from Pig.
What's his name?
Or wait, is Alex Wolff in Pig?
Alex Wolff is in Pig. What are you talking about, Robbie?
I tried to make a niche reference and fell flat on my face.
Hey, Pig's a great film.
Pig's a great film.
You should go watch Pig. Yeah.
Unrelated.
What is?
Go watch it.
Tony Revel. I don't know how to say his name.
Revelori.
Revelori. Yeah.
He's a good actor.
He is. He's fun. Cinematography by Brett Oh man, I remember we talked about Junkowitz. We'll go with that. We talked about this guy because he did the cinematography for Scream 5 as well.
Yes.
And Ready or Not as well from the same directors.
Yeah.
But yeah, That's Scream 6. Anything else you can think of that we should add, Remy?
I don't know. It's the sixth installment of the Scream franchise.
Really? Really?
Technically, the title of the movie is Scream VI, but
true.
Since it's Roman numerals,
forgive me.
It's
I've committed crimes against Skyrim and her people.
You're supposed to say it's Scream 6 because that's what it is, but like it typed out it's Scream VI for some reason. I hope we get all Roman numerals past this point.
Yeah, well, it would have been nice if we would have gotten a Roman numeral for Scream 5.
Right?
But anyway. That's all you guys need to know. Let's get into what we actually think about the movie. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this is the first movie that does not feature Neve Campbell out of the Scream series.
Whoa.
And this makes it that Courteney Cox and Roger Jackson, the voice of Ghostface, are the only two actors to have been in every Scream movie.
So Courteney Cox and Neve Campbell, they have like the R2-D2 C-3PO status in the franchise now.
Literally.
Because is 3PO in Rise of Skywalker? Or R2. Is R2 in Rise of Skywalker? He is?
Yeah, I
thought 3PO was just like going solo with them, you know? Like,
no,
I don't
remember R2-D2 shuts down because he reads the dagger.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's right.
Not the dagger. Something like shuts him down. It might have been the dagger. I don't remember.
No, it's like right at the very beginning.
He's like shut down for like all of the movie. And then BB-8's like, beep, 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 and he's like, breathe.
That's what I'm talking about.
And then C-3PO's like, I'm going to take one last look at my friends.
I'm talking about the fact that Courteney Cox is the C-3PO. She's the C-3PO of the Scream series.
Okay, I feel like that's accurate because I feel like Courteney Cox's interaction with this cast is the same kind of thing as the I'm taking one last look at my friends when there's like nobody there who C-3PO knows.
Literally during the scene where Gale is attacked in this movie, soft spoiler for Scream 6, I was like, she's the C-3PO of the franchise.
Well, we're going to hard spoil Scream 6, by the way.
That is true.
Listener. But Robbie, what did you think of Scream 6?
I think, and I especially thought on my first viewing when we saw it in the theater, I think I thought it was a good time.
Ooh.
And I really honestly think that that's like one of the best things anyone can say about Scream 6 is that it's just like really fun to watch.
Yeah.
Because honestly, like in reality, it's a bit of a silly movie.
Oh, this is like arguably, I think, the most silly like Scream movie since like 3.
Yeah, 3 and this are like the two most absurd Scream movies. But I really enjoy the cast in this one. Like, just everyone in the main ensemble's really fun. Like,
yeah,
that's honestly the big like pull for me. It does have a bit more of a competent like screenplay than 5 does. It has a bit more of a like its own identity as compared to like the Craven entries and sequels and everything, which I admire. So I don't know. I have a good time with it. It's not quite as like good looking as 5 is. Like it's a little more muddy. I disagree. Really?
Yeah. I talked about this. I think 5 looks really kind of ugly.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying like
it looks like an Apple TV original show.
I don't get that, dude. I don't know. Like, at least 5 has some pop to it, you know?
No, 5 looks like it's got that glazed over look that all Apple TV originals have.
But yeah, I think 6 is a little more gray, but it does still have like the punchy motion and everything that I like from it. So I can't be too upset. But yeah, I enjoy a lot of the meta stuff in this one. I especially like the cold open of this one a lot. Yeah. It's one of my favorites of the series. And yeah, I like Chad in the
Chad.
I watch Scream 6 for Chad.
Shout out to Chad in this movie.
But yeah, I gave it a 4 out of 5. I think every time I watched it, I gave it a 4 out of 5. So
yeah,
good time, I say.
Certified good time.
What about you, Micah? What do you think of Scream 6?
What do I think of Scream 6? I think Scream 6 is a really fun movie.
Yeah.
It's kind of stupid and it lacks in a lot of ways, but it's really interesting because we talked about 5 last time, and like it does so much better in all of the things that were kind of lame about 5, and then also has some weird lame problems that 5 didn't have.
Exactly.
So, I don't know, it's kind of a mixed bag, but this mixed bag just so happens to be a lot more, again, competent in its screenplay, and like just more fun.
It's not as repetitive as 5 is.
Yeah, and
either.
it really feels fresh, which I think is really important. Something about 5 that really bothers me is that it really feels hard in the shadow of Scream.
Absolutely.
Whereas this actually genuinely feels like they're doing something new and something fun with Scream. I don't think it always works, but on the whole, like this is really fun. I think the killings are fun. I think the cast is fun. Chad is great. Jenna Ortega is great in this. Man, what else to say? I think like the use of locations is really fun, and I like how this movie looks a lot. I think it's got a nice like a lot more spooky season vibe than Scream 5. Scream 5 is bright and ugly and gray, and this one is just a lot more rich and kind of its shadowy warmth.
I can see an argument for it, yeah.
My biggest problem with it, if I'm just summing it up real quick as my last thing, is just that the ghost faces are arguably some of the lamest we've ever gotten. And everything around its meta stuff is a little weak, just like 5. But it's just fun. There's so many great set pieces. I gave it a 4 out of 5 as well, I think, every time I've seen it.
Yeah, I think honestly, like, I don't know, a lot of people I know are kind of down on it. But like, even amongst the people I follow, everyone agrees that it at least is a good time, you know? But yeah, is there a question you wanted to start us off with for like a more general discussion?
Well, first I was going to say, in this latest review I did for the movie, my review was simply a very unserious film. Because this film, maybe we'll talk about that first, just how goofy this film is. Because there are so many, like, even way more so than 5. 5 has this weird, like, kind of almost like stuck up feeling to a lot of its goofiness.
Yeah, it's almost, I don't know, 5 is almost melodramatic. It's like teetering on melodramatic.
Yeah, this thing is just, they were just being, they were goofing in this movie when they wrote this. I don't like the characters and the choices that they make, and just a lot of the line deliveries. And like, again, man, why am I losing her name? We just watched the film. I couldn't remember her name right after we watched the film. Mindy. They say it like 3 times in the whole film. Mindy has like prescience during the entire film. She's just like, yes. And there are just like some dumb moments. I think it's really funny in like the apartment, like, kind of set piece with the ladder and everything when they're going across.
Yeah.
Like, Annika has been... See, I remembered Annika. How did I remember Annika but not Mindy? Annika has been, like, stabbed, like, really bad and has been, like, cut up through the stomach and is, like, bleeding out. And they're like, yeah, Sam, you go first across the ladder, not Annika. It seems like you should have gone... Annika, Mindy, Sam, very clearly. It's just there's a lot of really silly moments like that, that kind of make this just a goofy film to watch.
Yeah, and the fact that they like recite every plot point to you before it happens is also a little silly. Like, it kind of works sometimes, and other times it just feels a little on the nose. You're like, okay, guys, calm down a little.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think I don't love a lot of its like meta stuff in that aspect. Just like, I don't know, the whole new rules again. Like, I just
this one isn't quite as cringe-inducing as 5, though.
Yeah, but it seems ridiculous to me that you have like new rules. It's a requel rules, and now we're like, no, it's a franchise.
It's franchise rules.
It's not a requel sequel. It's a franchise. I'm like, what? And they're like, it has completely new rules. And then they go on to, like, not follow those rules. I think it's the funniest thing. Because one of the things that they mention in the new rules spiel is that, like, main characters are now expendable.
Whoa.
Legacy characters, throw those babies in the garbage can. Think about Luke Skywalker.
Oh, goodness.
But then, like, not a single legacy or main character dies.
Dude, like, none of the main cast dies.
Even though they really seems like they should. Chad gets stabbed like 25 times.
Right.
And he's just like, he's like alive by the end somehow.
Right,
I
he's
don't
like
think-
conscious in the final scene.
They
It's like,
leave him
yeah,
there for probably like 30 minutes before any medical attention can get to him. So he's sitting there, stabbed over and over and over again, and for like 30 minutes bleeding out on the floor. And then he's like, no, he's fine.
Yeah, I was reading some reviews and they were like, my suspension of disbelief only goes so far. And honestly, I think that this is like the worst offender in that sense, like in the Scream
for
franchise.
sure, yeah.
People are just getting stabbed left and right with almost no consequences.
Yeah, literally.
Which is crazy.
Even to go back to the legacy character thing, we have Gail in this. Apparently Neve Campbell did not want to come back as Sydney because they were going to pay her quite a bit less than any of the other amounts she took for a Scream movie.
You know, understandable.
I was about to say, which is understandable.
Like, yeah,
She's,
you pay your
pay
actors.
her. She's Sydney Prescott. I'm not sad that she's not in this movie because I don't really, like we said with Scream 5,
We didn't really want them back in the first place.
yeah, like not that I don't like Sydney, it's just like these are not their movies,
Yeah.
and their presence kind of leaves a weird shadow, especially on 5.
Oh, yeah.
This is much less so. But, you know, Gail's still here, briefly, and they're like, yeah, legacy characters are here to die. She's like, her and Kirby, only 2 legacy characters here to memory.
Yeah.
And Gail goes through this big thing. She gets stabbed twice, only twice. And then she's like, and they're like, again, if you look at Chad, stabbed 25 times. He's fine. And then Gail, like, she acts like she's, like, almost dead. And then she's fine anyway.
Well,
Don't
yeah.
don't worry about
it's
it.
kind of ambiguous as to whether or not she's going to live. And then they're just like, oh, yeah, the hospital called, she's fine.
Well, same with Mindy. Mindy gets stabbed on the subway,
Right.
And she gets stabbed
goes
like
down hard,
4 or
dude.
5
Yeah.
times. Is again sitting there like bleeding out on the subway, and sure, you have what's his face like getting her help, but like off screen, they're like, Mindy and Gail are fine in the hospital. What?
Yeah.
So like nobody dies in this film. The only people who die are like some people unrelated
Random
to
New
anybody.
Yorkers, yeah.
And Annika and
Anyone else? Does anyone else die?
other than random people, like a named character. Is it only Annika?
Maybe, dude. We just finished watching the movie. I honestly can't think of someone else.
Yeah, which is crazy from this. Like, does anybody else?
A lot of people get stabbed.
A lot of people get stabbed. But yeah, that's a really weird vibe that this movie brings, especially being that Ghostface in this. Like, think about that too. There are 3 Ghostfaces in this one. It's the only one with 3.
And yet it feels like the least dangerous movie in the Scream
Because
franchise.
the knife feels like, I don't know. I'm not actually a big fan. I don't know if it's just like their direction specifically. I'm not the biggest fan of how they go about like a lot of the killings in these movies. And I think this movie kind of highlights something like just a specific way. Anytime they have like the really like like really really fast stabbing, which they did with Richie's death too in 5.
Yeah.
But that like just wah 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 wah.
Yeah.
It feels, especially being that there's not the consequences ever to like match that besides with Richie, and was really any of Sam's kills. I don't know why it works so well for Sam, but not any of the ghost faces. Right. But this like insane flurry of stabs just does like nothing to anybody. People are knife immune in this series, which has always been the case. Like, don't get me wrong, this isn't a new thing. In Scream 2, Dewey gets stabbed like 45 times.
I know, but like, you know, he sustained some injuries from movie to movie.
Yeah, he's got like a permanent limp and like, you know, stuff. I don't know. Maybe, who knows? Who knows? In Scream 7, our whole cast may be...
I was about to say in 7, like, just everyone is, like, slightly crippled.
Yeah,
because they were just stabbed multiple
They're just all like, well, sure hope that Ghostface doesn't come for us again, because now we're at a big disadvantage.
Right.
So, no, it's just a weird thing that this movie has going, and I totally see it being, like, a weird suspension of disbelief issue.
Yeah. No, it is strange. I don't know. I generally like the killings in this movie. Like, I think they're fun. But yeah, you're right. They don't feel punchy at all. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. A lot of that, it feels more like an action scene than like
Yeah,
a horror
well, like
scene.
that's what I'm saying by punchy. I don't mean
Yeah.
like not like that the
Yeah,
violence
because it
isn't
has like
inherently punchy.
yeah, it has a good punch to it. It's just not
It's
like
not
scary.
like, yeah, it's not like viscerally punchy or even as much like gross punchy.
Mm.
There's even some like gross moments in here, but I think most of like the grossness in this is saved for the opening stuff, which doesn't
That's true.
really have anything to do with the rest of the film.
Yeah, the opening is just like raising the stakes a little to get us started.
Which, you know, that doesn't matter. That it doesn't have anything to do with the rest of the
Yeah.
film. I think it's a great opening.
I love the opening so much, like I mentioned.
I remember in theaters when we watched this film, and what's his face? What was his name? Like Jonas or something? I don't remember.
Jonas.
Yeah, it starts with a J, I'm pretty sure.
I'm gonna check.
He takes off the mask in the alley,
Yeah.
and like everybody was like,
What?
Because they like revealed his face immediately.
That
and
was
everybody,
crazy.
and that was a really fun little subversion in the opening. Jason.
Right.
Like I said, it started with a J. But yeah, when he took off his mask, which would be like it did make me think this time around, like what if he had just been Ghostface and they just did like a thing where they just revealed who he was. We know who he is, but the rest of the people, that would be very hard to balance.
Right.
I don't think people would be happy with that because it would kind of destroy the key whodunit of Scream.
Yeah, the whodunit tension of the movie,
which is kind of a big piece of the DNA of Scream.
I would be really interested to see that like work, like to see someone do that in a Scream movie.
Right.
That
It's
would be
very
crazy.
interesting. But yeah, do you have another question though? That was just kind of following the trail of how goofy this film is.
I guess we can just hop to the thing that bothers me about the movie the most, which is the ending. Like, what do you think of the Ghostface motivations in this one, how it's revealed, how the like actual finale plays out? Just any sort of thoughts
that's
about
that's
the
a lot
ghost faces.
that's a lot to touch on.
It is.
The ghost faces in this one are just kind of lame. They're like Amber and Richie were kind of lame as well,
Oh,
but
they
they were fun.
Exactly.
Like that's the thing, and I claimed this last time, and I'll still claim that they are like easily the most fun duo of ghost faces since Billy and Stu. Nowhere near as good as Billy and Stu.
Yeah.
But like just the two actors, the two characters, Amber and Richie, are fun characters.
That's what, honestly, they are what I look forward to when I watch Scream 5
exactly
again.
Like they are fun. I would not say the same for this cast. There's such a weird thing that they do in this movie too. And the fact that, and it kind of, I think it hurts a lot of the whodunit kind of mystery of this film, because this is, I think, the least mystery feeling of any of them.
Because there's not really that many people that it could be.
What they do with it too is they pretty early on cut off like most of them from the film.
Mm-hmm.
The cop guy is still in it for quite a bit, but he's kind of lame. And then they act like what's her face died really early on in the film.
Well,
and then
nobody, it's like halfway
and
through.
nobody trusts. Well, she wasn't in it much before. She was just there as kind of a bit character.
Yeah.
And same with the other guy. I don't remember either of their names because they're not that memorable.
The other guy.
Dream Kid, he like literally. It's just like he's not in it much because they don't trust him, so he's just not there.
Yeah, he's kind of fun at least. Like his character's kind of funny, but he's not a memorable presence really.
Yeah, he's got like a couple fun lines. It's like they feel like both of them feel like bit characters.
Yeah.
Which is really weird for them to be then like your ghost faces, and I don't know if that was just to try and to subvert your expectations more. But I think it, in the long run, kind of hurts the whodunit of the movie by not really being like, I'm not invested in them as characters, so it's not an interesting mystery like the like reveal that they're the killers, and I don't think it makes for a compelling like. I think it makes the story a lot less compelling as a mystery.
Yeah, I was gonna make a comparison to Scream 2, who has like that movie has a like similar issue that it tackles a lot better.
I was about to say Scream 2. I mean, which is kind of goofy that this movie is quite a bit similar to Scream 2, which they acknowledge even in the film.
Yeah,
but I don't know. Yeah, Scream 2 handles it a lot better. Again, Scream 2 also has pretty unmemorable ghost faces as well. With a again very similar family of somebody who was killed, with one parent, and who is the other guy? He's not related to Billy's mom. He's just a guy, I think.
Is he just a guy? I don't remember.
It's been a bit since I've watched Scream 2.
Right.
But yeah, and that kind of leads into the finale feeling kind of lame because you have all of these characters. I think the cop reveal is fine, but you have all of these characters who just haven't been in the film that much, so you haven't had time to build like any theories about them or see much of their motivation.
Yeah.
And then they come out and they're just like, yeah, our motivation is because you killed Richie. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, like, and it's not uncommon to have, like, a Ghostface monologue. It's in every movie.
Oh, yeah.
But this one is just, like, they're giving you a lot of information right at the end.
Right? They're like, Richie did this and this and this. I was like, we didn't even, like, the film that Richie was in didn't feel so inclined to tell us all of this about Richie.
Well, and again, that one also has the problem where Richie's pretending to be someone else the whole movie.
Yeah.
So, like,
but
they
it
can't
worked
give us
with his
anything.
character.
Yeah, no, like, that's fine. But, like, they kind of, like, shot themselves in the foot by making it about some, like, by making it related to Richie. Like, they kind of make it to where they have to give you all of the information afterwards. You know?
And it kind of follows that thing. And it's really, I think, my biggest issue with Scream as a series. Literally, like, my biggest issue for the entire thing is not a single one of them knows what to do with Ghostface motivations past the first two. The first one was fun. Like, the whole thing was that they didn't have a motive.
Exactly.
That was cool. That was really fun and inventive and exciting. 2 was still fun because, like, it was, like, I don't know, it was interesting to have Billy's mom and random guy. And it was less about, like, specific motivations, and it just made for a cool setup. But 3 is like the worst motivations.
It's like a weird, like,
4
revenge thing.
Laughable motivations. 5 laughable motivations. 6 laughable motivate. Like, they just don't know how to write a Ghostface anymore. That doesn't, like, because they're like, oh, it's gotta. They're racking their brains thinking about the rules set up in the other Scream movies. They're like, it's gotta connect to the other Ghostface, and it's gotta Woodsboro, and
just write on a big whiteboard Woodsboro question mark.
And they're just like racking their brains of how they're gonna make all of this work, and like the only things that they can ever come up with is just like it's somebody who is mad about somebody else dying.
Yeah,
and it never really works quite as well as the first 2.
Yeah, no, it's a bit weak, I will say, and like I said, the finale is It's simultaneously pretty fun and, like, my least favorite part of watching the movie.
Yeah, I think the actual set piece is fun.
Exactly, yeah. It's a fun set piece, but, like, all of the actual plot stuff that happens during that part of the movie is, like, kind of... Yeah,
there's this really funny moment. Again, it goes for on how unserious this film is. There's, like, a tiny little subplot going in, a little tension, a little character drama about Tara being like, Sam, when are you gonna? When can I go and be on my own?
Be on my own.
I got the whole world to see. And Sam's like very, very overprotective and worried about her sister.
Yeah, that's her whole arc.
But then again, like, it doesn't really seem that she is that overprotective, because Tara, like, in this movie seems like she does maybe need some protection.
Right.
She is not dealing with it well.
Yeah,
and her friends do help her out at the party.
Because Tara's, like, whole arc over the course of this movie is realizing that she needs to accept help from people.
Yeah, I think that's a fine arc for Tara. But for Sam, it's a little weird.
Yeah.
And then you have this really goofy moment in the finale of the film where
I can't believe they actually did it, like, without, like, acknowledging it somehow.
Tara has, like, half fallen off the balcony, and Sam's holding on to her. There's blood all over her hand, and she's slipping. And then What's-Her-Face is coming towards Sam with a knife, and What's-His-Face is waiting. I don't remember any of these characters. We just watched the film. I don't remember their names. Is waiting down below, and he's like, let me at her. Let me at her, Uncle Scooby. And Tara is like, the music like swells into a serious moment, and she's like, Sam,
you have to let me
go. You have to let me go. And I'm like, what? Robbie this time around was literally like, I can't believe they actually did the "you have to let me go" moment. It's so like ridiculous. I don't know what they were thinking with it.
Well, it's funny because like Scream movies are cliche a lot of the time.
That's
but,
part
like,
of the like
they usually like tip their hat to it at least a little bit, and they play it 100% straight in this movie, and it's so funny.
which is so like, and it just continues, like I mentioned, to like build up this vibe, and I think it works a little bit more than how even we're describing it, because we're making it sound like that's
it has like a fun charm.
I was about to say, we're making
think.
it sound like that's an 100% bad thing, and it's not,
No,
because
it
it
kind of
gives us,
works.
I was about to say, it kind of works with this film, far more so than whatever 5 is doing, and 5's trying to be more tongue-in-cheek with it. So maybe this was a good thing, but like it makes it just feel, like I said, it makes it feel like a very unserious film.
Well, the thing is, both the movies play Sam and Tara's drama, like their interpersonal drama, very straight. And it just works a lot better in this one than the weird tone of the other one.
You get a lot of funny things though, like you mentioned this when we were watching it, where you'll cut from like a little bit of like a goofy scene, and then it'll cut to like just a completely somber still shot of Sam like flooded in
like
a sea of gray, brooding over in the corner, and you're like, oh yeah. There's Sam.
Yeah, Sam is a lot more like I think what's the word I'm looking for here? Not relatable, but like I can empathize with
she's
her
a lot more like human in this film, just the way she's written,
more fleshed out.
A lot more. Well, Tara's the same way.
Yeah.
We mentioned that in 5 that Tara is like weirdly not in 5 much.
Tara gets like injured and is just occasionally in a scene in 5.
Which, you know, I think 5 was a prophecy for characters being able to survive like the films really easily, because like again, she is the person in the opening of
typically
5.
Yeah, following the formula she would have died in the opening of 5, but she doesn't.
But yeah, so like I think Tara and Sam are improved in this film. I think they're really fun to watch. Again, Chad and like even Mindy and like
Mindy are way
the
more
whole
fun,
friend group here is just really fun, and they make this work so well. And that's kind of what we mentioned with when we were talking about 5, is like it's a great, as kind of troubled as it is, it's a great stepping stone to allow this film to really flourish its ensemble.
No, it's weird because like when we revisited 5, I hadn't seen it I think since I had watched 6, or at least it had been like a few months or something. And I was watching it, and I'm like, I really just don't like Mindy that much in 5. And I'm like, that's weird, because I love her in 6.
Yeah,
you know?
she's so much fun in 6.
Because like she's just kind of like grating and like always just like mocking people in 5, and it grates on my nerves.
They try and do Randy, but like it just doesn't work as well, because that's not the tone that the movie has. Like Randy is like the way the characters interact in the first Scream, which again, Kevin Williamson is like a master of making character like work and dialogue work really uniquely. But if you go back and watch the original Scream, the dialogue in it is like crazy with how the
really
character,
good,
because there's constant tensions being thrown out by all of the characters.
Exactly.
There's like this really unique vibe of like unease even among all of the friend group.
That's the Scream 2 thing I was bringing up, where like you don't quite trust anyone in the ensemble.
Whereas
in the old Scream
movies. In
movies.
5, like you don't really have that vibe at all in 5, and yet you still have Mindy as like a Randy style character, constantly like sending judgmental remarks to everyone.
Exactly. You never, I don't know. I never once thought it would be Mindy, where in like the first Scream movie, I'm like, it could be Randy.
Exactly.
Dude.
It could be Randy.
Very easily.
Which is part of what makes Randy's character work. But again, we're not talking about 5. But here in 6, she's not really like that, which is very cool. I think her character works a lot better in this, and she, like, I don't know, like, they're just fun. Right? Tara's fun. Chad's a blast in this. We keep just saying Chad is great, like we're not elaborating anymore. But like, do we even need to? He's Chad.
I was about to say, I like actually care about the romance between Tara and Chad, which is so strange.
Say that's a really cool detail.
Yeah.
And I was actually really upset in theaters when it looked like Chad was definitely 100% going to die.
so many times.
Because, like, I genuinely did. I was like, yeah, Tara and Chad.
Yeah.
This is cool. They have good chemistry. I like both of those characters. They're, like, fun, interesting, engaging characters who have a unique dynamic. And all of them blend, like, I think that's the big thing. Like, all of their dynamics just blend together in this really well. Like, with the quote unquote core four in this, as they jokingly put, like, they've now been in a film together, and I think something about that gave the writers the ability to write them in a little bit of a better way.
Yeah,
or
just
something.
kind of, they didn't feel like they needed to be quite as, like, vague and mysterious about everything, you know? Like, they can just let the characters be themselves.
Yeah, let the performances kind of speak for themselves in a lot of ways, and just have, like, a lot of fun with them.
Because in 5, they do a really bad job at, like, teasing who Ghostface will be, because they're like, ooh, it could be anyone, but, like, they don't really give, like, a great motive for anyone.
Yeah.
So it just feels, like, unnecessarily vague when it, like, I'm like, I want to get to know these people, and in 6, I finally do, you know?
Right. So, no, yeah, that works really well on... like, the cast and, like, the ensemble is great for Scream 6. I did want to mention, though, while we were on, like, specific characters, I wanted to look a little bit further at Sam. Because there's still some just, like, weird stuff about Sam, some troubling stuff. Because I think she's an interesting character. I think she's a lot more fun in this movie.
Absolutely.
She's not as much, like, again, she's a lot more human and, like,
because she actually has, like, stuff to do in this
one.
one.
She acts a little bit more like a person in this one, and
you know, she has, like, her own life.
Yeah.
She's,
which
like,
we don't
really
get to see. And I mean, she's dating Richie in the first one,
but
like, we don't really get
to
to see
them, like, hanging
Sam
out,
operating much as a person, like just like a like average, not under stress and extreme situations person.
Yeah.
So we get some of that in this, which is cool. But it's still really weird, like, just a really weird tonal thing, especially to throw into the Scream movies, when the Scream movies never really had that going for it, and, like, the weird kind of problematic tropes of horror.
Yeah.
To throw in yet again, like, again, we've mentioned last time, Sam having, like, mental illness issues and stuff like that. And
which are very much, like, directly addressed.
Yeah. But, like, it's this weird thing, like, she's a fine character, and if, again... my opinion will change on this vastly. I cannot believe so many people are like, oh, Sam should be the killer in 7. That is the worst thing you could say. I've heard that
a couple times, and it makes me shudder to think.
If that happened, I will change everything I'm saying right now. But I was going to say, at least, like, she is a fine character, and they haven't done anything, like, egregious with her. But it's still really weird and kind of tonally bad to have your, like, character... You're one character with, like, a strong mental illness that she needs to take medication for and that she struggles with, which is a normal thing to do.
Yeah.
And have her be troubled with being a serial killer.
Yeah, I don't know. Like you said, it depends a lot on where they take her character, but, like,
but so far they've been they've been inching towards, like, really a problematic trope, to be sure.
Yeah.
Like, in general, I think it already is a little problematic just to have her, like, again, it almost, like, just through subtext implies that the only reason she has, like, any issues at all is because she's Billy Loomis's kid, and, like, it's not great.
Yeah, it gives me an ick kind of vibe, which is
yeah, and that's so weird.
It's
to me.
Part of the reason I wasn't able to get on board with Sam in the first movie.
Yeah.
And it's not quite as, like, pronounced in this one, because, like, I don't know, in the first one they're, like, playing up, like, what if she's Ghostface?
Exactly.
Whoa, that's
exactly.
crazy. And in this one, that's not quite as, like, that's not a thing, really.
Yeah.
Which makes it a lot more palatable, but it's still a bit questionable.
Yeah, it's just weird when you have these scenes where Billy appears and he's like, yeah, let's be serial killers. That's who you're meant to be.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no.
Yeah, that's honestly, like, one of the biggest criticisms I would throw at, like, just in general making Sam the main character and going about writing her that way.
Yeah, and it feels weird for this because again, that's not something that Scream has ever really run into.
Exactly.
And in 2023, right, this is what we're doing with our horror movie.
It feels a little regressive, which is weird.
Yeah, I don't know, and it's not like, it doesn't feel like it's commenting on anything, because again, part of what makes Scream work it does play into all of the cliches of horror, but it's supposed to play into the cliches of horror movies at the time and like again make fun of them and also use them in a really unique and like actually good way.
Like use them well.
That's like the magic of Scream.
Yeah.
But to memory, this isn't like a thing in modern horror around. Again, I mentioned this, and I don't think I actually said it in the podcast, but I mentioned this outside of the podcast, that I think one of the issues Scream 5 and 6 have is that slashers aren't a big genre right now.
Exactly.
Like, there just aren't very many slashers, straight up.
It's
and like
funny because we have like an anti-slasher in Bodies, Bodies, Bodies almost.
Yeah, like,
but like that's like the only example I can think of
literally,
that's modern.
Like when 1, 2, and 3 came out, there were a lot of slashers. They were like in their heyday practically.
Oh yeah.
When Scream 4 came out, it was like the remake slasher era, literally. Like just they joke about it. We talked about it in our Scream 4 episode. They joke about the fact of just how many like slasher remakes there are in the 2010s and 2000s. But in this, again, they had issues with it in the 5th one where they're like, Jordan Peele,
right?
The Babadook.
Yeah, there's just not really like a schlocky horror scene nowadays, which there's starting to be like a bit of a resurgence.
It's horror in general, like this year has started to really like kind of get some juice to it.
Exactly.
Horror feels like it's coming back in a big way this year.
Yeah.
But even then, like, it's not as much of like slasher, so there's really not much for Scream 6 to like grab onto, which is fine. You have an entire
5 was the same way.
You have an entire series of stuff you can work with. 5 did the worst thing by
really
like just hodgepodging everything they could think of into it and being like, it's a modern movie.
Modern
Reddit.
Requel Reddit.
Ryan Johnson. Is this anything?
Is this anything, guys? Let me know.
Whereas this one doesn't do that as much. It has like a lot weaker rereferences to anything like that.
Which I think stuff is like hardly there.
Which honestly. I think is all the better for this specifically. But again, it makes it even more weird toned to have Sam written in the way that she is.
Yeah, it's a bit strange for sure. I don't know. Again, a lot of this is contingent on where they take like the final movie in the trilogy or quadrilogy. We don't know.
Yeah, I was about to say, because again, there's nothing egregious about how they present Sam's character. If anything, she's a lot better in this one than she was in the first.
Yeah, I'm a lot more. Yeah, her characterization in 5 makes me kind of uncomfortable, honestly.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's just odd. I just wanted to bring it up because it certainly is something that for me personally hangs over the film, and it hangs over 5 a lot more.
Absolutely.
But it's still here in this one.
Yeah. Very strange thing to be in a Scream movie, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what is the point of that? Which, not everything has to have a direct point, but like, you know, when you're writing in something that can, like, especially that kind of works along with a problematic trope, at least have a point to it.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's strange. You mentioned the like stabbing scenes earlier, like all the attack scenes, and it is very action movie.
Yeah,
like
I was
thinking
actually
back on it.
I was actually going to ask, like, as my next question, I was going to ask if you had a favorite killing, a favorite stab.
Oh goodness. Honestly, maybe can I just like count the opening as one?
Well, no, because I was gonna say the opening, so you can't do that. So okay, we'll do this. It's favorite non-opening like murder, because clearly like the opening, like I guess technically quote unquote 3, it's 2 kills. The opening 2 kills I think are the best of the movie.
Yeah, they are. They have the best setup. They have the best staging. They have the like most fun ideas, I think.
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm trying.
I almost kind of wish
trying to think.
We straight up just had the film that they killed off at the beginning of this with Jason and Greg.
The 2 film students, like they killed their film professor and everything. Like that's so fun. Yeah.
Like I don't know. I kind of wish we had that movie, but you know. It is what it is. Also because I just think that actor is really fun. Right?
He's the best. I wish he needs to be in more stuff.
Literally, he's great. Yeah, favorite. What is who else dies?
I'm trying to even like think of another one.
It's not technically like a killing scene because again, they're much more staged as like action scenes. It's almost like That's funny. I was gonna say it's almost like how John Wick paces out its action scenes.
It is.
Less amount, obviously, but like it's kind of like our characters who are threatened going from location to location where danger might follow them or they might run into danger there. And it could happen all around them. So it's kind of more of like thriller-y than like a horror set piece.
Yeah.
Because I think out of those, I think I'll go with my favorite. Ooh. I have two that I've kind of got it narrowed down to.
Okay. I mean, there aren't that many in the movie.
But I think I'll go with the bodega one.
I was actually gonna say the bodega. That feels like, besides like the opening and maybe, I don't know, some other scattered stuff, like that feels like the defining like set piece of the movie.
Yeah,
is the bodega.
I think it's really fun. I think it's really well staged.
Yeah, it feels unique to the movie. It feels really well staged.
We get Ghostface with a shotgun.
Yeah, Ghostface with the shotgun. What more do you need?
And I think that movie looks. I mean, not that scene looks really crisp.
It does.
There's something about that.
It's one of the more visually sharp.
I was about to say they used it in the trailers a bunch, but I like anytime we watch that scene, I'm like, this looks good.
Yeah, dude.
Even though it's mostly gray too, like it's like white and gray as most of your setting, but I'm just like, yeah, it makes this specific Ghostface pop in a really unique way.
I was about to say that is honestly when Ghostface feels the most intimidating out of like the whole movie, because it's a much smaller space. They shoot it with a lot more intentional like visuals. You get some Dutch angles. You get a lot of like very shallow depth of field stuff.
But even then though, it's really funny. It's more a Jurassic Park style like scary scene,
right?
Than like a horror movie.
And, you know, someone brought up that Ghostface feels like superhuman in this one again, where like he's just like he feels like if he punched someone, they would probably die or something. You know, like he just like even more so than getting stabbed. Like he just feels like he's like insanely powerful in this. One.
That's the thing that's so tonally dissonant about Ghostface in this is he feels that way, and you have like a bunch of like goofy sound effects when he's like swooshing around places,
dude,
and
he jumps over the couch.
He feels even like larger, like he just feels big in this movie. But at the same time, it goes back to that problem, like we said, where like there's no consequences.
Yeah,
there's no like reals. Nobody dies.
Yeah, he feels like insanely powerful, and yet he can't seem to kill anyone.
Exactly, like he's like this huge. It's like if like, man, what's a good example? Like if Hannibal Lecter from Silence of the Lambs just couldn't quite finish anybody off.
Right.
Like he would try and he would like be really scary and do a good job, and then he would just be like, they just wouldn't die, and he'd be like, oh darn.
What can you do? Yeah.
Just like that kind of thing. That's a kind of a dumb example, but like where it's like it's just this really powerful presence of a character who just doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
They kind of fail.
But yeah, Bodega. Probably second best.
I was gonna say my second pick would be the apartment set piece.
The apartment, yeah, it is fun. I will say it goes on a bit long. Like it's a bit long in like some weird spots, I think. But like I don't know, it's generally well paced and like pretty fun.
But here's why it's actually the worst set piece of the entire movie, because it wasn't Tim Robinson in the bathtub.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I think you should leave fans. Tim Robinson has a voice cameo in this movie.
So what's her face? The one Ghostface.
Yes.
Why do I cannot remember her name for literally anything. Quinn in this. One of the boyfriends she has in this film is Tim Robinson's voice. If you hear it, like it's clearly his voice. But then, and I swear it's still him in that scene for the shower stuff. Like
I don't
that
think
sounded.
it is.
It might not be, but like.
Well, I mean, when they show the actor, it's clearly not him.
Clearly not him.
Yeah.
I was thinking it might be his voice still.
Oh, maybe.
But yeah, then they show the boyfriend like dead in the bathtub, and it's not Tim Robinson.
Could you imagine?
Maybe they thought he would look too goofy, but this is a goofy movie.
Dude, if I would have cheered in the theater.
If I would have seen Tim Robinson murdered in the bathtub in a Scream movie, it would have been hands down the best Scream movie.
They should bring him back. Okay, my pitch for Scream 7. He's mad that his one night stand was murdered. And he comes back as Ghostface.
Only acceptable. That's terrible motivations, but only acceptable because it's Tim Robinson. He needs to be. It's like full on. I think you should leave bit character.
Exactly.
That would be amazing.
No, what if he's like just doing his own thing? Like he's not the main Ghostface. He's like kills one person.
He's like a side Ghostface. That would be a red herring Ghostface.
Oh my gosh.
He like turns himself in by the end of the film.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. Hire me.
Oh, we're writing a film for you guys. That's what it should be. Forget whatever weird Christmas script you're working on.
Dude, you would get all of the millennial, like, 20, 30 something guys on board for Scream 7.
They would
so
be
fast. They would be in seats, seated for Tim Robinson.
We just made you Scream 6 lost money. We just gave you why your next Scream 7 would make money.
I think you should leave Scream 7.
We're talking billions in the box office.
But yeah, Tim Robinson's Scream 6, great stuff.
But yeah, that was, I think in general that's also a fun set piece because I think it has actually some tension though.
Yeah.
Which I think like some actual like scary tension because you have the setup where like apartment guy next door sees Ghostface come in and is trying to warn them.
Shout out to apartment guy.
He's fun. He's great. I love how he's like the most normal person in any of these movies.
Just a very understanding and like sensible guy. Like he's like,
yeah, again, like I was so gonna be annoyed if he like when I watched this the first time when they're like, sorry, we don't really know you that well, so you're not gonna come into our final set
piece. Like he'd be like upset about it.
That he would be like, what? You don't trust me? And instead he's just like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And then he goes and gets help. Like he's amazing. Bring him back for Scream 7.
I was about to say he genuinely is a highlight of this. Like anytime he's on screen,
it's a fun performance, and he just feels like Again, this movie is like really absurd, even compared to a lot of others. So to have him just be kind of
chill,
a guy, I'm like, yeah, it's the guy,
right? No, I like simultaneously like it kind of like the ensemble kind of lacks tension because you like don't believe that any of the core four like would do it. But like also you get like this really fun like charm of them like banding together.
Yeah, it's kind of that thing, and even Scream 2 has that issue as well of the thing where they don't want to make like Randy wouldn't be the Ghostface in the sequel, Gale wouldn't be, Dewey wouldn't be, like you have that thing where they have the core characters that they want to have. So they do an interesting job of reworking in new characters into the friend group to both be killed off and be suspects.
Exactly.
But you have to increase the friend group by a pretty big size to make that work. And as we mentioned, they increase it by Annika, Quinn, and Dream Boy.
I don't remember his name.
He looks like Dream. That's all I could go for. And like again, the two of them are not in the movie much, and Annika dies pretty early on, and that's literally all they have besides apartment guy next door, who also doesn't appear that much.
Yeah,
and you know it's not him.
It's not gonna be him. Yeah,
that would be too basic.
Yeah, but like we have like the Kirby red herring. We have like maybe Gale red herring ? I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just this weird thing where like
there's just not that many like, oh, it could be them,
Yeah, they could have at least, I don't know, as much as I love the opening, they could have maybe kept Greg and Jason around enough to like build up to their deaths a little bit more.
That would have been, that would have been kind of fun.
Clearly, like, do that thing where they would show, like, have them do the kill. I think this would be fun. Have them, like, do the kill. Show that they're Ghostface just like they do. Have them actually operate for a bit.
I was about to say, we get one interaction between Jason and Tara.
Have
he's dead.
Have like another kill, like one that they didn't do, but it's not told to us that they didn't do it. Yeah. And then have them get killed by the other awesome. Ghostface. Yeah. That would be really cool. I don't know. Maybe. Just because it would build tension, you'd have more characters. I'm sure, like, again, that actor is really fun. I don't know who plays Greg. He's a severed head in the movie. So
Right.
I did not recognize that severed head. So I couldn't tell you if Greg would be fun. But Jason would be fun to have in the movie longer. And actually, it would give, like, some more people for them to interact with, which I think, again, like, 5 is part of the issue of this. Like, Scream is like a hangout movie. You know, they're all just kind of living their lives. And later Scream movies too have this issue where, like, they're too prepared, they're too in the know about Scream to be able to live normal lives. Even 4 has that issue where, like, the moment a Ghostface killing happens, like, they put everybody on lockdown. And it works well for what 4's doing on the most part, because it's, like, much more of, like, a straight horror movie. So they kind of do, like, a Halloween-esque thing with it, whereas in 5 and 6 they have movies set up like they should be, like Scream 1 and 2, where it's more just people hanging out and, like, going to school and stuff.
Yeah.
But instead they don't have that. There's no real scenes of anybody in school in 5. We don't see a single college class in 6.
Right.
There's not even, like, as much. There's, like, a party, but we
get like
not
one
there
college
very long.
party. Yeah.
So, like, it's just, we don't have as much time as I would like to sit with these characters outside of being scared for their lives as I would like, to where you don't have as many other people interacting with them normally, because they instantly get closed off to everyone else because they're scared.
Yeah, and, like, it makes logical sense, and, like, you still get some fun scenes of, like, just them hanging out, but yeah, that definitely is a problem, how isolated all of that stuff is, or feels anyway.
But still, I don't want to be too hard on this movie, because, like, at the end of the day, I always feel like, especially with the Scream movies, just because we're so, like, in deep with the Scream like series at this point,
invested,
that we sound like we are very harsh on these movies. But that's just because I like picking them apart a lot. I know the series really well at
fun
this
to
point,
dissect,
and they're just so much fun to poke at and look at. But at the end of the day, this is just so fun to be in.
Yeah.
It's a good movie. It's got a great pace. It's got good set pieces. It's got good characters. It's got fun kills. It's got a couple spooky scenes.
Yeah.
It's straight, like, back to back. There's only a couple scenes that I'm like, and that's mostly just, like, a couple monologues at the end.
Exactly.
And, like, literally outside of that, this is great.
Yeah. No, like you said, there's some, like, weird, like, characterization stuff with Sam, and, like, some weird Ghostface motivation stuff that doesn't really work for me. But, like, honestly, on the whole, I think it's pretty great. Like, it's a pretty great movie.
A lot of the difficulties that they run into are just difficulties that come with writing a 6th installment of a series, especially like this. Like, Scream is such a unique series with how self-referential it is, and how, like, just the way Scream movies work. So to have a Scream movie, very difficult to do, be like this and be this good is really impressive.
Yeah, I would honestly say that it's, like, one of the better movies to come out this year. I think it's great.
Yeah, I think, actually, I had my year ranking pulled up earlier. I think this landed...
I don't remember if it's still in my top 10 for the year or not.
Let's see.
I should see. Yeah.
This lands at number 14 for my year ranking, which I think is pretty respectable.
Oh, no, it got kicked off, I think, in favor of Bottoms, which is funny.
I think Bottoms is better.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Scream 4 is really fun. It was great to see in theaters. It was great we wore Ghostface masks to it. We had a lot of fun. Like, this movie is just, like, it's a good one. It's not a great one. It's not the best one. I mean, it is great, but it's not, like,
I think it's a great movie. It's not one of the better Scream sequels. Like, they're 4's better than this, 2's better than this, arguably.
Yeah. I would say, if I was ranking, which, I mean, we have been, I would say, obviously, Scream, Scream 4, Scream 2, Scream 6, Scream 5, Scream 3.
Yeah,
is how
that's a pretty fair
directly ranked them.
I would probably put 3 above 5.
Yeah, which, and again, like we said with 5, like, if that's one of the worst ones, this is pretty
You're
great.
doing good, yeah.
And if Scream 6 is, like, middle of the road, that's a darn good middle of the road.
It's so much fun. It's a blast.
And again, this one just feels fresh. It doesn't feel like it's getting caught up in old stuff. It doesn't feel like it fully still knows what it wants to be, because again, the Ghostface stuff itself feels a little like they didn't have a great idea for it, but it still,
It's
as
a
a
lot
movie,
more-
feels fresh.
It's a lot more like action thrillery than the franchise has ever been, and it honestly pulls it off pretty well.
Yeah, so I don't know. I loved what it was doing. I don't think I have anything else to add.
We've covered pretty much all of my general thoughts about Scream 6, like aside from like writing a full essay about something. I don't know.
Again, I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Wow, we're in perfect agreement, Micah. I also gave it a 4 out of 5.
Wow.
Who would have thunk it?
Who would have thunk it?
But yeah, let's get into some of the other stuff we watched.
Let's. So the What We Watch segment is a fun little thing we do at the end. We're doing it right now. And
Whoa.
for those of you who are new to the podcast or have just never listened this far before, it's a fun thing where we talk about all of the movies we've seen since our last episode. We give brief ratings, brief thoughts, and we have fun. It's so fun.
Party Rock
Are
is
you
in the
having
house
fun,
tonight.
Robbie?
And
I think our
everybody
audience should
just
have
has a good
fun. This time we're going from the 23rd on. We ended our last episode. Our last episode was actually a whole what we watched because we were busy. So we didn't have a full movie planned. So if you want to listen to that and hear a bunch of movie opinions, go listen to that episode.
Whoa.
But we're going 23rd on, and I think, yeah, the first thing that we actually have is on the 25th. We watched a lot less movies this week than normal.
Yeah. We were both pretty busy.
Yeah, definitely. And what did we watch on the 25th, Remy?
We watched a little ditty called Army of Darkness or Medieval Dead, depending on who you ask.
Trapped in time, Remy. Surrounded by evil. Low on gas.
Yeah, it's the trilogy capper for Sam Raimi's Evil Dead series.
Yeah, Army of Darkness. This is such a goofy film. It's
this one, even more so than Evil Dead 2, is like a straight up like Looney Tunes cartoon kind of thing.
Literally, I can't even believe they went for this. Like, can you imagine?
I honestly can't
any
imagine.
other horror series doing this. Like, because the first one's like NC-17 and like really dark and like scary,
very suffocating,
and very
movie,
suffocating. And then the second one is like, it's pretty darn goofy, but it still is like not the most tonally incoherent thing
zany,
from the first one.
Yeah, it's zany, but it doesn't feel totally removed from the first one, you know?
which is like a normal thing for, I think, a horror franchise to do, to have different tones between your original and sequels. But then this one, they send them to medieval times.
They literally just made like a period like fish out of water comedy with like a bunch of pratfalls and like skeleton puppets.
Exactly. There's so many skeleton puppets and like just goofy things. The tiny Ashish scene goes on for like 7 minutes of just straight like comedy injuries.
Oh my goodness.
It's so crazy.
They got their mileage out of that green screen, dude. My goodness.
It's fun. This is a really fun movie.
Yeah, we watched the director's cut.
Yeah, we watched the director's cut. So we haven't seen the theatrical cut yet. We'll watch that sometime, I'm sure.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely planning on rewatching.
Because I've heard the finale is better in the theatrical cut from a couple people. But
yeah, it's weird. I think Juliet mentioned in her review that she wants like a weird hybrid cut of like the theatrical and the director's cut, because like there's stuff that isn't in the theatrical that is in the director's and like vice versa.
Yeah. But no, it's goofy. I think Bruce Campbell is at his most interesting here. He's so much fun and so goofy, and he's got so much to work with. This really is the first time. 2 is definitely is, but this is the first time we have like Ash versus Evil Dead Ash. Like he is the same character as he is in Ash versus Evil Dead in this.
Yeah, one of the people I follow, Chance on Letterboxd, he mentioned in his review that like Ash Williams is like maybe Sam Raimi's greatest creation, because he's like this weird like 50s adventure film protagonist, but he's like really sleazy and stuff too. Like
he's such an interesting protagonist to have for the series.
A really interesting protagonist,
especially in Ash versus Evil Dead and what they do with his character arc there. I think that's cool. But at the end of the day, this is just a really fun, really tight movie. It's got really interesting set pieces, cool effects,
Some
funny
stellar
moments.
effects, man.
And, it's not like the most memorable, in my opinion, of any Evil Dead film. It's definitely the least like Halloween of any Evil Dead film.
It's got a foggy graveyard. That's Halloweeny, and it's got skeletons, dude.
Robbie, it's like fantasy skeletons and fantasy foggy graveyard. It does not give me Halloween vibes. But it's still really fun. I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, no, I mentioned in my review, I just really admire like them just honestly wholeheartedly pursuing this bit.
Again, who else, where else has ever something like this happened?
Just following through on its cartoonish logic the whole way and just trying their best to do like even the weirdest concepts.
Yeah, I was about to say it's still like, or at least at any rate, because I mean, other horror franchises get real weird and do weird stuff, but this is like from the same director, from the same writer, in like the canon series.
It's so strange, yeah. I just really have to admire it, honestly.
Yeah, cool film.
Yeah, I also gave it a 4 out of 5. I think it's great.
Then, Robbie, what did you watch?
On the 26th, I watched Mario Bava's A Bay of Blood, which was pretty good, I would say. Or Twitch of the Death Nerve is like a more direct translation of its Italian title, which is maybe arguably a cooler title. But yeah, Bay of Blood, it was a like prototype slasher. I seem to be watching a lot of those. But it honestly kind of functions as like a Cabin in the Woods movie before like a Cabin in the Woods thing existed, really. Like that wasn't really a thing until like the 80s. Yeah. And this came out in 71. And it honestly shares like a lot of the same plot DNA as like Friday the 13th. Which is very strange.
Wasn't arguably like one of the first Cabin in the Woods horror movies that won? It's like Something by the Lake that came out in the 60s. We watched it.
Yeah, what is the name of that movie? Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think it was like a Swedish film, actually.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, no, Bay of Blood, one of the weaker Bava films I've seen, like the character, like interpersonal drama, and like it tries to play with like serial killer motives a lot. Like it does it like there's two sets of killers. There's people doing it for money and people doing it for like a way to like cope with their trauma. And it tries to like draw a parallel between the two of them, like which one is more morally reprehensible kind of thing. But at the end of the day, it just is like not that interesting. Like it's more interesting on paper, I think, than it is actually watching it, because they have to explain two sets of killers' backstories to you while also like trying to be scary and engaging. I don't know. It just didn't fully work for me. It still has some cool kills. I don't know. Cinematography's good. The staging is good. The effects are pretty cool. Someone takes like a weird cleaver thing to the face and it looks awesome. But for a movie called Bay of Blood, there wasn't as much...
there wasn't a whole Bay of Blood.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole Bay of Blood. I'm honestly a little disappointed. But there was a cool octopus. There's like 2 octopi? I don't know. Yeah, so that was kind of cool. I gave it a 3 out of 5.
Nice. On the 26th, I watched The Wicker Man for the first time. Another like 70s movie, but this is like a staple of horror, I think.
Yeah, no, I was about to say it definitely has a cult following. A lot of people consider it like one of the best classic horror movies.
Well, that, and it kind of very much defined a very unique subgenre of horror that hasn't been touched on a ton until something recently like Midsommar.
Yeah, Midsommar is a very clear riff on it.
I was about to say, not even just The Witch is kind of in a similar vein too,
like more folksy horror.
Yeah. But it's very interesting. This movie is really, really weird. It's like one of the weirdest horror movies I've seen just tonally. It's really bizarre, but in just like the weirdest, I don't know, just the weirdest ways. Because it does this really unique thing. I think Karsten mentioned it in his review for it at one point, that like you don't even feel that it's a very sinister movie until like the last 10 minutes. And then like the rest of the film feels retroactively like really scary for some reason.
Interesting.
Like, because there's a lot of weird like use of music in it. There are multiple musical numbers in the film. And like just really like bizarre, strange stuff throughout the film that you don't quite know what even like the vibe is of the film. But man, by that ending, it comes together to be something really, really cool and really pretty terrifying in my opinion. I can totally see why this became a classic. It's doing something that like very few other horror movies I've ever seen is doing, especially with its very like bright aesthetic and everything. You know, there's not like shadowy killers stalking people or anything. It's a much different vibe.
Cool.
Yeah, it's just a really neat film.
Yeah, I've been excited to watch it. It's been on my watch list for a little while now.
It's not perfect, and there's like a scene I would skip, mainly just because it's like weird and I don't know. But it's a neat film, and I joked in my review that I feel like it could technically qualify as a Christian film. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5.
There you go. Later that day, we went out to the theater.
Yeah.
In the Dolby Auditorium, nonetheless.
Dolby, yeah. We watched in Dolby.
The new Five Nights
at Freddy's. Can you survive 5 nights?
I guess we shouldn't spoil Five Nights at Freddy's in our weird little...
I feel like we should do an episode on this at some point. It's bad. I'll say that.
I would hesitate to call it outright bad, but it's not good.
It's bad.
It is not a good movie.
It's just... It has a good heart. I'll say. Yeah. It has, again... It's very similar to the Mario movie, which we did an episode on, where it has like a really strong heart. You can tell it was made from a place of love, but you can also tell it had not a good director, not a good writer, and was completely butchered over multiple times.
Yeah, I was about to say, we know that it changed like writers and directors like at least 3 or 4 times during its production.
Like 4 or 5. This thing has been in production for so long. Like I completely forgot about that too when I went and watched it. I assumed it wasn't going to be very well written, but I forgot just how long it had been in production and how many different hands it had passed around to.
It's just kind of a hacked together screenplay. It is not really all that dramatically compelling or scary.
Yeah, and it's not scary. It just kind of bums me out. It's not scary at all, which is really the big thing that I think would have made this work, even if it was poorly written. If it was just scary, then it would be good. But it is like it is the least scary PG-13 horror movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's barely a horror movie. It's more just like a thriller. It's a mystery
barely
thriller.
Even a thriller.
Yeah,
like it. It doesn't follow the story or structure to make it that thrilling of a story.
Well, yeah, no, I'm just saying like it is. It's a mystery thriller by definition, but like, yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't know. Kind of a lame movie.
It is.
A lot of people were like, feels like a fan film, and it does feel like the biggest budget fan film you'll ever see.
Yeah, I mentioned in my review, and I keep saying this when people ask me what I think of it. It's like the most boring version of the Five Nights at Freddy's movie I can imagine. Like, it's not aggressively awful, like in a fun way, and it's not good. It's like it's not scary.
Well, I think actually saying that it feels like a fan film is a great way to put it. Yeah. It feels like a film made with passion and love, but completely like they had no idea.
A complete fumbling of what
they didn't know what to do with it, or the production didn't go smoothly, and it just does not turn into anything good.
Yeah. 2 out of 5 from me.
2 out of 5 from me as well.
But I saw it in Dolby.
That was cool.
Yeah. Did you? Okay. I watched something on the 28th, which you caught like the back half of. But I watched The Pit and the Pendulum per my grandma's recommendation. So yeah, it was pretty cool. It was my, I don't know, 5th Roger Corman film. And it's probably my favorite of his that I've seen so far. It's got a lot of like really good gothic atmosphere and like set design and costuming and everything. It looks great. That's like one of the biggest things you can praise about it. But I generally like the performances, and like I think the atmosphere works pretty well. Honestly, it's a pretty like stripped back movie in a lot of respects, but I think for what it is, it's pretty well directed. Vincent Price is really fun. And I like the way it looks. Like, I don't know. It handles the poetic nature of the text pretty well too. Like, it feels like a kind of literary movie, which is it's a fun vibe. I liked it. I gave it a 3 out of 5.
Nice. Very cool. On the 29th, I watched, because the 29th, I kind of did like my essentially Halloween celebration with my girlfriend, and we went to a farm and we hung out all day and painted pumpkins, and that was all fun. And after we finished up painting our pumpkins, she had never seen The Witch. And
Just after you guys finished.
Well, no, like she
had seen it before.
We had talked earlier, like somehow it came up in conversation that she hadn't seen The Witch. And I was like, oh man, you haven't seen The Witch? We should watch The Witch. And she was like, yeah, let's watch The Witch. And we watched The Witch.
Wow.
Robert Eggers is what I would consider one of my favorite like modern directors working. And yeah, I think The Witch is a really, really interesting movie. It's not overtly scary in many ways.
It's scary, dude.
And it's got such a weird vibe.
It does.
But it does that really unique thing that Robert Eggers does where it just does not pull any of its punches. It's constantly it's like slamming you against the wall over and over and over again. And in this instance, it's like really especially bleak and dark.
Right.
And it's got like so much like trauma rooted in it. And like it's a crazy movie. It makes the catharsis of the end work extremely well. And I think it's got a little bit of a pacing issue.
It does.
I honestly think it's a little too long.
Yeah.
Which is like it's 92 minutes and it's a little too long. That's interesting. I think this could have been like a cool like 80 minutes.
Yeah, I was about to say I could see like a 75 or 80 minute cut of The Witch being just fine.
Yeah, like just I think all the better for it because I think it kind of lingers a little too long on certain things. But there are some genuinely really gripping scenes in this, and I think the performances are fantastic, especially from obviously Anya Taylor-Joy, but Harvey Scrimshaw.
Yes.
He's so good as Caleb.
He's the best in that
and
movie.
He hasn't been in much else. He should be in more. Cast him and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, love me some Robert Eggers. It was a good spooky movie to watch. I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Very cool. It's a very cool movie, I say. Well, while you were watching The Witch, I sat down on the 29th and watched a film called Mr. Creep, directed by Isaac Rodriguez, which for those
not in the know.
For those not in the know, Isaac Rodriguez is an independent film director who makes like these really small budget horror films. And I am a very big fan. If you are listening right now, Isaac Rodriguez, I love your movies. Keep making them, please. But yeah, like stuff like Deadware and The Stream are like two of my favorite horror movies. And he worked on those. And I'm trying to work through all of his catalog. So I turned on Mr. Creep, and it was pretty good, honestly. Like I was pleasantly surprised because like. It's about a serial killer who like has a clown mask or whatever like burned onto his face, and I'm like, oh, this is probably gonna be really lame. But it actually had like some interesting commentary, not like super revolutionary or anything, but it had some interesting commentary on true crime and the way like serial killers can become immortalized in like the general populace, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that was cool. I liked the performances a lot. There was one person in particular, I'm trying to remember, Sheila Payne. She's really good in this movie. Like, honestly, one of my favorite characters in any of Isaac Rodriguez's things. She's awesome. I need to see her in more movies. And of course, we still have like a bunch of his regular, like usual suspects, like, just general cast people he works with a lot. And I always like seeing them again. But yeah, it was cool. It's a little heavy-handed, but it was fun. I think it's generally pretty scary, and I liked it a lot. So I gave it a 3 out of 5.
Nice.
Very fun.
Well, speaking of low-budget horror movies,
hey.
The next day on, I think, what is that, like the 30th, 29th?
I watched that on
this
the
was
29th.
on the, yeah, so this was on the 30th.
Yeah.
I watched Cthulhu, the 2007. There's a different one that's 2019. 2007 Cthulhu, which is a really interesting film. I really, really admire what it's doing as a Lovecraft adaptation. I think it's got a great idea. It does a really interesting thing where it like takes that kind of tension that revolves in most Lovecraft stories that was like essentially rooted in racism of Lovecraft writing from a perspective of like all of these unknown people around him being like hostile towards him and
exactly, yeah,
thinking they're scary, and like adapts that from the kind of racist roots it comes from.
Kind of racist,
racist. Very racist. I was just saying like
yeah,
not kind of racist in that grammatical sense.
Yes, yeah.
But adapts it into a really interesting like LGBTQ thing where instead of our main character being a racist man, he's a gay man. And I think that's a really kind of brilliant way to what's the right word?
Like translate it? I don't know.
Not translate, like
transpose.
Transpose.
That's more accurate, but I know that's not what you're
technically.
Looking for.
But yeah, like essentially it's kind of a
it.
beautiful thing to do, I think, with his work, and it works really, really well. It makes you actually root for the main character of a Lovecraft story, which is not always the case
right.
With Lovecraft's work. But unfortunately, beyond like that really, really great premise and I think a pretty decent main performance, this thing is just super amateur and low budget. It's got some fun ideas. It's got some cool scenes. It's got a bunch of little salamander guys that are all like, bleh.
Yeah.
And they're very cute and a little creepy.
I love salamanders.
They're very, love that. But it's not as fleshed out as it can be. It's really swinging for the fences in a lot of ways, and I admire the heck out of it for that, especially with what it's trying to do. But ultimately, it's just like fine. One of the big issues I think I have with it, especially, is that its audio is pretty poorly like recorded.
That's a shame.
It sounds super echoey the whole movie, and like
that'll drag any movie down.
Yeah, it's not great, but I really admire for what it's doing. I wish we had like a remake of it or something with like a higher budget.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool film. I gave it a 3 out of 5.
Nice. On the 30th, I watched a little film called Phantom of the Mall, Eric's Revenge.
Phantom of the Megaplex, Robbie?
No, it's not.
Phantom of the Megaplex?
I think it's so funny that it's called Phantom of the Mall, Eric's Revenge instead of just Phantom at the Mall. Phantom of the Mall.
They
because
really
it sounds
wanted
like a
Eric's
sequel.
Revenge.
It sounds like a sequel.
Are you sure it's not?
No, yeah, it's literally not a sequel. It's not related to anything. It's a remake,
maybe?
No. I don't know why it's called that. I mean, Eric does get revenge, like that's the whole movie, but like why is it called that? But yeah, it's like a fun little like late 80s slasher film, very much like the last breath of like classical slashers. So it has like a bunch of tropes and like a bunch of weird 80s tropes too. So yeah, it's kind of cool. I liked the kills a lot. I wish they'd played up the like Phantom of the Opera like thing a little more. Like they have the romance and everything, and like he burned his face. He has to wear like he like cuts one of the mannequins apart and like wears it as a mask, and like that's cool. But I wanted him to like play the organ or something. You know, is that too much to ask?
Maybe.
But yeah, it was fun. But like it doesn't really move much beyond that. It's functional as a slasher. It has some interesting-ish like kills, but really it's not all that revolutionary or like anything like that. It's exactly what it says on the tin. It's Phantom of the Mall, Eric's Revenge. And it was fun. I had a good time with it. So I gave it a 3 out of 5.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
On the 30th, last thing I watched before Scream 6, this last night, I watched Possession for the first time.
Heyo.
1981 Possession.
At the very least, a Letterboxd classic.
Yeah, I was about to say a Letterboxd classic, a cult classic to be sure.
Yes.
It was so good. I was really, I knew I would like it.
Hot take Possession is
everything
good.
I had seen about it was very much up my alley.
Yeah.
And I love what it's doing. I think it's so crazy that like I watched Jurassic Park when I was younger, and I was like, I really like this Sam Neill guy.
Sam Neill guy.
And now, like, seeing him in stuff like In the Mouth of Madness, Possession, Until the End of the World, and stuff like that, I'm like, he's the best. I love Sam Neill.
He's got such a unique charisma and, like, presence on screen.
Yeah, and seeing him in this early of a movie, seeing him this young, is so interesting, because he looks like, I saw somebody put it that this is, like, a bunch of, like, vaguely, like, they're really, like, technically like pretty people, but there's like something vaguely off-putting about how all of them look in this movie, and like I don't know how they achieved that. Like Sam Neill, I look at him, I'm like, something's not quite right about him.
That's good. That's a good makeup department or a good lighting department.
Yeah,
or both.
Well, dude, the cinematography in this movie is crazy. It's going like there's constantly like these sweeping fast shots going all over.
That's awesome.
And then it will consistently like go to these incredibly tight, super hard focused shots on people's faces.
I need to watch
as
Possession.
as they're waxing poetically about like being possessed essentially by a squid monster. It's so cool. It's really, it handles its themes really well. I was worried it would be like, I don't know, because it's a movie that revolves around like sexual themes. So I was worried it would be like
exploitative,
very
voyeuristic.
exploitative and voyeuristic, but it's
Yeah.
not at all really. It's very much, it leans away from a lot of that. It doesn't linger on anything, which I think is really personally cool. Makes me want to makes me a
Engage
lot
with
more
it,
happy to engage with the film. And yeah, I mean, obviously everybody always praises Isabel Adani, I don't know how to say her last name.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Her performance is incredible. She's really good in Nosferatu as well.
Yeah, I need to watch both of those, actually.
But yeah, she's incredible in this. There's so many like all-time scenes, lines, things. Like, this is just an impeccably well done film. And I know it's probably just because it came out around the same time, and if I'm not mistaken, this is a French produced film as well. Yeah, French and Germany, but it reminds me a lot of the Three Colors trilogy, which are France and Germany produced films from around the same time, but like in looks and everything, it looks very similar to the Three Colors trilogy as well.
Micah's like, I've only seen the Three Colors trilogy watching Possession.
Literally.
Getting a lot of Three Colors vibes from
this. But it's Possession was great. It reminded me a lot of like Hellraiser, but just like better and like a little bit less, again, like Hellboy, or not Hellboy. Hellraiser is like really weird in a lot of ways, and I think this has like an outstanding screenplay.
Hellraiser was like a debut, right? Like that was that guy's like first.
I think so. It's like it's one of his only
gig.
It's one of his only films he's even directed.
So it wouldn't surprise me if it's a bit amateurish.
I was about to say, whereas this guy's a pretty seasoned director, his weird,
very well known director,
very weird
film students,
abstract stuff that he does.
Yeah.
So yeah, cool film. I give it a 5 out of 5.
Very nice. I think the next thing I logged, on the 31st, was Son of Gulag.
Not Son of Gulag.
I'm giving it a shout out.
Don't give it the shout.
I'm giving it
We've been going for so long.
It is a feature length.
It's so long
episode.
It's not a film, Ruby. It's a gulag.
Okay, so this is, you guys know like those fireplace videos? This is essentially a jack-o'-lantern version of that. And the streaming service Shudder has been producing these like every year on and off for a while now. And this is the one for 2023, and it's really good and cool, and you should go watch it.
It's a gulag.
It's the gulag, Micah. It's so awesome. It's so, I don't know, especially the like ones set in neighborhoods, like the very first one and this one, Son of Gulag, are both set in like a neighborhood during Halloween, and they capture the vibe of it so well. I know it's kind of a low bar, like it's literally just a pumpkin sitting there with a candle in it and like a cat walks by once. But like, I don't know, it's a very cozy ambient film, not groundbreaking. There are much more ambitious and cool entries in the Gulag franchise, but I do like this one. Son of Gulag gets a 3 out of 5 from me.
And then we watched Scream 6.
Yeah, we watched Scream 6 this morning.
On this Halloween morn.
This is our first time in a while that we were like actually recording a whole episode on the day it's supposed to come out. So
crazy. Yeah, morning episode.
Yeah, I hope you guys have a fun and safe Halloween.
A happy Halloween, Rebby. A spooky Halloween.
Spooky Halloween. Go watch a scary
candy-filled Halloween.
Or if you're not up for a scary movie, just go watch like
Halloween.
a Scooby-Doo movie or something.
Yeah, well, watch Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost. Watch Coraline. Watch Scream. If you're up for it, watch Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula. Watch Nosferatu. Pair those as a double feature.
The Shining. That's not a
Halloween movie
necessarily.
Boo.
I'm sorry, I killed the vibe.
Yeah. Go watch a cool movie, a spooky movie.
Yeah.
Happy Halloween.
Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode.
Bye-bye.